Welcome to PEAC, Train Like a Girl, a podcast by girls in sport, for girls and coaches in sport. We're here to amplify your voice. It deserves to be heard. At PEAC, we are a safe place for girls to hang out, learn, grow, and build community. We empower girls in sport and coaches with knowledge, resources, and support we think is necessary in today's athletic environments to thrive. Join us for bold conversations about the experience of girls in sport. Our discussions will make you laugh, cry, cheer, get frustrated, and hopefully rethink the future of girls in sport for generations to come. So whether you're just starting to enjoy summer, commuting, cleaning your bedroom, or unpacking from college, take us with you. Follow us. It helps more than you can imagine. And make sure you share with a female athlete or coach you love. I can't wait to introduce you to our next guest, who is actually going to be our new intern who is hosting the podcast. Kaitlin, welcome.
Thank you so much, Samson. Thank you.
So glad you're here. You ready to get warmed up?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Cat or dog?
I am a cat person.
Nice. I don't think I knew that about you.
Yes. I love both, but cats have a special place in my heart.
All right. We might have to talk about that. Podcast or Netflix?
I'm a podcast person right now.
Do you have a specific podcast besides PEAC that you're loving right now?
Besides PEAC, I was just recommended one from one of my friends. I always get the name wrong. It's called, hold on. It's called Aware and Aggravated.
Ooh.
So need to check that out. Yes.
Right. All right. I'll put that on my list too. All right. Taylor Swift or the Beatles?
Ooh, I love the Beatles so much. However, I have grown up with Taylor Swift, so gotta stay true to Taylor.
Nice. T Swift for the win. All right. Now I'm curious about this. Back in the day, were you a track workout or a long run athlete?
I was always a long run. That was my favorite practice.
Nice. I love it. Well, why don't you fill us in? So obviously we know now that you were a cross country and track athlete back in high school, but tell us about who you are, your relationship to girls in sport, and what you're up to right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Samson said, I was a track and cross country runner in high school. I always loved running. My mom is really into running, so that's how I fell in love with it. And I just fell in love with the sport, and especially being part of such a close-knit team in high school. And that's where I got to know Samson and be able to learn about, especially running, but more specifically health and wellness and how to stay healthy, keep your mind healthy. So cross country and track, but cross country specifically was a major part of my high school. And I'm now a student at the University of Texas at Austin, and I'm studying journalism. And this summer, I wanted to come back and be able to keep using my media skills that I learned about and just broaden my skills and broaden my experiences. And I know Samson has this podcast, and I wanted to see if she needed any help. And I had no idea that she was going to be launching an app that is geared towards what I'm so passionate about helping women in sports. So, and just overall health and wellness. So I'm so thrilled that I'm able to spend my summer focusing on such a passionate project.
Oh my gosh. And we are so glad that you are here. So thank you so much for sharing a little bit about you and your story. I didn't know that about your mom, but that's super fun. I love that she's the one that introduced you to running. Does she still run?
She does. She still runs a lot. I've grown up watching her run marathons, and I also forgot to say that I ran my first half marathon this year. I ran the Austin half, which was so much fun. So recommend if anyone wants a great half marathon.
That's so fun. I know Austin's quite the happening town, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I think too. So I love that you talked a little bit about your connection to sport in high school, so cross country and track. And obviously there was a health and well-being aspect, but you also talked about culture. And I think that that's something people don't often connect to with high school sport. They think it's competition all the time, and they don't really talk about the culture piece of it, but I love that you referenced that specifically. Was that something that was important to you?
For sure. That was probably the number one importance of cross country to me, because that really kept me so grounded and connected to the sport, because I just became so close with my teammates, whether they were in my grade, or I also just felt such great mentorship from the girls above me. And then being able to pass that on to the girls younger than me was so important to me. So that, I would say, the camaraderie and just teamwork was my favorite part about cross country.
Yeah, I think so. Was there something specific that you think happened at cross country that made it feel more like a community or more like a positive place to be, or not? I'm just curious.
Yeah, as you were saying, I think cross country, it's so easy to think of it as such an individual sport, because
Mm,
you don't need other people to make your time or not. However, I think it is such a team sport, because it just has such a big effect on your mentality and coming to practice ready to compete. I always look forward to going there with my teammates. And I think a lot of the work that we did through the coaches, we did a lot of work, just whether it was going to yoga and being together and creating mantras together. I think that was really important to make sure we were all in the same headspace. And also, just, I talked about long runs earlier, but going out on long runs and being able to connect and create such strong friendships
mm.
was really special. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that running, while it can be super hard, and there are certainly when you're doing a workout, you're certainly not, having long, in-depth conversations, but those long runs do give you an opportunity to really
For
dive
sure.
in and to get to know somebody.
For sure.
How was the transition for you to college? Did you find your place right away with community? And then how did it feel from both an academic perspective, kind of fitting into that new piece, and also the health and wellness piece, like because you were not going to practice, so it was something you had to kind of figure out on your own. Was that an easy transition?
Yeah, 1000%. I said I go to Texas, so I remember getting there and I was so excited, and I didn't really realize until I was there that I knew absolutely no one, from my hometown, which
Hilarious.
was pretty daunting for a second, because a lot of
That's kind of funny. Newsflash, you don't know anyone here.
I know. It was kind of a reality check of looking on campus and realizing that I knew absolutely no one. However, I feel so grateful, because I made the choice of rushing. So I got there, I went right through sorority recruitment, and I was connected to a group of girls. And luckily, I found some of my really best friends, and just girls with the same values of working hard and kindness and being genuine. And I really connected to them. And so I feel super grateful to be given that opportunity. And I also just put myself out there. It's hard to start new, but you're gonna find people that have the same things I like to do or talk about. So I'm really lucky that I found that. And my roommates also have been just so amazing. So I've found a community. I've made my community there, which has been really, really great. And then academically and mentally, my classes, I learned the high school prepared me pretty well to be able to manage everything, but it's still a learning curve of you're getting there and you have so much free time and there's so many exciting things to do, and you got to learn how to balance and manage your time correctly. So it's it's a transition, and you gotta trial and error and see what works for you. But I've found that I work best in the mornings, and I don't work well with people, which is hard because I really wanna hang out with my friends, and it's hard to say no to when they wanna study together, but I need to be alone. So just trying out what works best for you is so important. And mentally, I this is why I'm so connected to running, because it always is something that grounds me. And especially just running outside, I luckily in Austin, it doesn't get cold. So I was able to
Right.
run outside for pretty much the whole year. Even though it was super hot, I still appreciated getting outside. So I found my workout groove, and I was really, even though I used running and athletics to ground me mentally, since the transition to college is just so busy all the time, I really wasn't super hard on myself for keeping a really strict running schedule or anything. I let myself kind of just go into what was happening and run when it felt right, and I had the best time. So, yeah.
I love it. Yeah, so it wasn't so scheduled. It was more
No,
like what when it felt right. It was
for
more
sure.
organic.
For
Yeah, I
sure.
love that. I love that you said that you put yourself out there, and I'm curious if you think that sports helped you build some of that confidence.
Yes, 1000%. I remember just cross country, I also really didn't know anyone other than an upperclassman, Bree Ponjak, who is such a mentor to me. And she just had such great friends on the team who were older than me, and I just looked up to them so much. And once she introduced me to them, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna put myself out there and see if they like me. So once they did, and I felt like I just made such good friends, I'm like, you know what? I'm never gonna stop myself from putting myself out there.
I love that. And Bree's such an underachiever. She was like probably a tough person to learn from.
Oh, I know. It was like I was like, "Wait a minute." She was just super low key, nothing crazy.
We actually have to have her on the podcast. She has a fun college story, actually. So
Oh my
she would
gosh,
be
we
fun to
have
have on.
to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. And I think what we decided is we're going to give this a shot this summer, but then maybe something that you can manage when you go back to campus, right?
For sure, absolutely, yes.
Nice.
Seriously, I love working with PEAC. It's such really great values and so much to learn.
Yeah, definitely have. We have had some pitfalls. We've had some like road
Yes,
stops, but we've pivoted and we've tried to figure some things out. And I wouldn't say we're full steam ahead, but we're definitely making
we are
progress.
getting there.
We are getting there. We are both doing things we have never done before, and we're definitely learning.
Yes,
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. So you did bring up the app, and so I think that this is a really good time to talk about the app. And I know that some questions came in from some of the people that are following us on social media, so maybe we should talk about those.
for sure, yeah. So let's start by asking one of the questions was, how much will the app cost?
That's a great question. Our goal and our hope and our desire is to make the app super affordable for girls. So we are really gearing towards a middle school, high school, and college age female athlete. And we want it to be something that they can use, 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. And so our hope is to keep it under $10 a month, but we're even hoping to have a promotion when we first launch to give a really good introductory price for an entire year. So more to come on that, but the idea is to keep it definitely less than, a drink or two at Starbucks.
Awesome. Awesome. Another question that was asked is, will there be nutrition help provided by the app?
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm really excited about, while this is a sports performance app, we do have a bunch of other professionals that are lending their experience and their voice to the app. And so we do have a registered dietitian and nutritionist and a licensed therapist who specializes actually in eating disorders and female athletes who will be contributing to the app. I think it's always important to mention that even though there's going to be advice and super fun recipes and on the go snack ideas and those type of things on the app, we are not, gearing this information towards an individual. So it doesn't replace somebody going to see a registered dietitian or nutritionist or going to see a therapist. This is just some ideas to make sure athletes are feeling fueled and getting the nutrients that they need.
Great. So we know that PEAC, or the app, is focused on education for girls, strength in sports. So a question that was asked is why do girls need to train differently than boys?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And without getting too far into the weeds, I think if you think about where girls' sport is today, even compared to where it was 2 decades ago, so 20 years ago, I mean, really, even 10 years ago, female athletes are competing at such a higher level now, I think, really than ever before. And they can do anything a boy can do. So I want to be like perfectly clear there. But what we also know is that a lot of the science that was out there, in particular exercise science, so that's what I study as a certified personal trainer and as a certified yoga instructor, is that a lot of the information we were getting was specific to boys. And so when they would do, case studies or tests, the sample set were men. And we were taking that information and we were trying to apply it to both men and women, or both boys and girls. And as women started to become more competitive, we saw some things happening. We saw higher injury risks, or higher injury rates, excuse me, not risk, but females actually are at a slightly higher risk also. We can address that in a second, but higher rates of injury. We also started seeing some issues and or concerns with things like the menstrual cycle, which we've talked about quite a bit on this app, and just understanding the value and the importance of our female athletes getting their periods and then keeping their periods. And we know now that there is a direct correlation between fuel and performance and your menstrual cycle, and fueling and conditioning also in relationship to the menstrual cycle. So there's a lot of things that we know now today that we didn't know 10 and certainly not 20 years ago. So what we do know is that prior to puberty, so prior to girls going through and getting their period, boys and girls are really pretty much the same. And after that, after their period, girls do girls do develop differently than boys and need to train differently than them. So one of the things I had mentioned is that they're at a higher risk for certain injuries. And some of that is because of hormonal differences. But what we also know now is some of that is because we're not training specifically enough for girls in sport. So one of the things we know is that it is more optimal for female athletes to emphasize core strength and hip stabilization and proper movement mechanics. And those aren't the things that people love, kind of the nitty gritty of moving the right way, like doing a proper squat or doing a proper lunge or learning how to do a proper deadlift. But what we know is that if we can help girls in sport learn these things at an earlier age, their risk of injury actually decreases. One of the other things we know is that girls, again, develop different than boys. One of the things you're going to hear us talk a lot about is this Q angle. So when you're looking at a more typical female shape, women are a little wider in the hips than males, and it gets narrower. So if you kind of think about the angle here, it comes into the knees, puts a lot more strain on the knees, which is why you may be seeing more ACL tears or more knee issues. So just observing that and understanding that, and then knowing that we need to train that posterior chain. So the glutes, the hamstrings, even in through the calves and lower back for more stability, but then also to increase both speed and power. So they're not big changes, but there's enough changes that if you take them, I think, seriously, they can be super impactful for a few things: for injury prevention, for performance, and is something you keep talking about, long-term health and well-being. So all three of those things, I think, become super well addressed when you get a little more specific. Does that make sense, what I was saying?
For sure. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And have you noticed, even in some of your training that you're doing, that to optimize, like even training for the half marathon, that you were doing more things like strength training and mobility work or core work or hip strength? Were you doing some of that?
Yeah, I've always, I don't know if you remember this, but struggled with hip problems through track. So I've had to spend a lot more time and focus on strengthening my hips specifically to stay healthy and be able to be active, which is something through learning through the app and through the work that we're doing, I've realized has so much more importance than I thought it would.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I hope what happens with the app is what we're going to do is we're creating a lot of content around movement. So strength training, mobility, and yoga are going to be the three big categories. And within strength training, there's going to be, powerlifting, there's going to be, hip strength, posterior train strength, and then, regular lifting. And then dividing that out, knowing that we need to train in cycles. I think that's something that, most young athletes are not doing. And probably their coaches are unaware of because they're not strength coaches. But we shouldn't be training the same way in off season as we are training during the season. So we're going to divide that out for athletes. We're going to have workouts established that can help athletes prepare for season and to stay well and fit during the season. So that was super important. A lot of talk around mobility because of exactly what you're saying, is that we know that particularly when you're talking about, hip, knee, and ankle, kind of from the knee down, some lower back, you get some of that in there and maybe even some upper back. But we know that if we can help athletes be and stay mobile, it really enhances performance and it really helps with recovery, which is kind of the big piece. And the yoga, and I know you touched on this, is something I'm forever grateful to
Yes.
PT or Coach Etnier, who brought me on to start with the yoga program with the girls cross country program. And I think people think that yoga is about being flexible, and that is not what yoga is. There, you may get, some increased mobility through yoga, but yoga is really the practice of breath. It's the idea that you can, settle the mind and you can, breathe your way through something and you can find relaxation, you can find space. I actually think yoga is more about training the brain and training mental performance than it is about anything else. What do you think about that? You think I'm like, did you get the sense of that when you were practicing?
I think that's completely spot on because the difference between doing yoga when you're not focusing on your breath work and controlling your mind, and then doing yoga when you're very focused and you're mentally focusing on a goal or your body and your breathing is such a major difference. And you can really feel it in the way your body feels after and the way your mind is and you're calm. And yoga specifically helped me so much with the mental aspect of cross country and preparation before a race. So that's spot on. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun with that. We're going to have some classes. So if athletes want to watch a short class or participate in a short class, they're going to be able to do that. And the rest of them are going to be movement-based classes. And we're learning a lot about what a movement-based
Yes.
Kaitlin and I are.
Yes.
Although I'm telling you, as I'm working on this app, because I do send workouts home with clients all the time, and I have for 40 years. But it's always been this process that I don't really enjoy. And, I have to kind of figure it out. But one of the things I'm realizing is that this is going to simplify my life, like in the long haul, because all I have to do is tell somebody to go to the app and click on this workout or this exercise in this class.
For
I'm like, I should
sure.
have done this decades ago. So I'm super excited about it, and we're super excited to get it in everybody's hand. We're also really excited to have the podcast up and running again. We had some trouble with this too.
Yeah. Really excited to have this podcast going right now because it hasn't been able to go up in a while due to some technical difficulties. But yes, the podcast is going to be back in business.
Yeah, there's some talk about getting a calendar. So we're gonna when we schedule our guests, they're gonna know ahead, and it's not gonna be me sending 32 text messages.
Yes,
We're
yes.
getting super high tech.
Very high tech.
Well, let's go ahead and get you cooled down so people can learn a little bit more about you and you can get on with your day.
Oh, awesome.
All right. I'm actually really curious about this. If talent were not an issue, which sport would you love to excel in?
Okay, I was just thinking about this, and
Sure.
yes, I was just thinking about this because I finish or I keep watching there's a Netflix series, American Sweetheart, and it's about the Dallas Cowboys cheerleading team. And I think I would love to be a dancer if I could really learn how to dance well. I would love to learn how to do that because I'm just watching them and they're so strong and technical and it's such a great skill. So that would
Plus, then you'd be the hit at every wedding you ever went to.
absolutely, because it's not just it has so many benefits.
There are so many benefits. All right. Which food do you wish was portable enough to eat right after a competition?
Hmm. I'm a big sushi fan, so I would have sushi.
Oh, I'm going to judge a little. You're going to run a half marathon and then you want sushi?
After a competition, I'm not always really hungry after a competition.
All right. You can sing with sushi. I don't mean to change your mind.
No,
I love good sushi, but
I thought this was a non-judgmental podcast. Sam.
this is a non-judgmental. All right. Sushi it is.
Whatever.
That's hilarious. The most original answer ever. Sushi. Oh, now we have to close with this because now I want to know the best or the worst advice a coach ever gave you.
Oh goodness. Best and worst advice.
No advice, but she did judge me on my fuel
Yeah,
habits.
honestly. Um, worst advice. Nothing's coming to my head with
Oh, that's good.
worst advice. Nothing with cross country or track. I'm not just saying this because you're here, Samson. I really was never. There's nothing that's coming to my head for cross country and track. Best advice. I I was always told just to get out there and run my own race instead of getting in my head, and that was always great advice.
Yeah, I agree. That's good advice. I'm not sure if Rife or Sharpie who gave that to
One
you, but
one
that
of you
was good.
guys. One of you guys.
Someone. Yeah, I think that we probably all had some version of that. So
For
I
sure.
love that. Well, thank you so, so much for being here. I'm super excited for everything we have going on at PEAC. PEAC is definitely fueled by our incredible interns who are gracious with their time and gracious with their energy. And so I'm super duper appreciative of it. Thank you all for tuning in.